Good morning, second graders. Today is Wednesday, May 13th. I hope your week is going well. I sure miss all of you. I want you to know how proud I am of all of you for still working so hard on all your distance learning materials. I am so proud of all the posts that I'm seeing on Seesaw, and some of you are just doing such a great job. So keep it up. I know it's getting harder now that it's getting nicer and nicer out. I get that. It's been a while since we've been doing this, and it's kind of getting old, isn't it? But we just have to make the best of our situation and continue to learn just like we would be learning if we were in school. So keep it up. Today on our matrix for Wednesday, May 13th, it says watch my YouTube video for a lesson on main idea and details and complete page 5 and 6 in your reading packet. So that's what we're going to talk about today is main idea and details. And we've talked about that quite a lot this year, haven't we? Especially when we do our Scholastic News on our sheets that always wants to know what the article is mostly about. You know that's main idea. So that's what we're going to talk about today for reading, and then after that, we'll do some more telling time with math. All right, so when we're talking about main idea and details, you know that the main idea means what the text is mostly about. We've talked about that a lot, haven't we? And the details are something that explains more about the main idea. So I found this anchor chart that kind of helps you to explain it. So it's kind of like a flower pot, and the flower pot is like the main idea, and then the flowers that are growing in the flower pot are like the details. And I chose this one because it says on here, there are many fun things to do during the winter. And remember when we wrote our winter writing and we used the hamburger method and we talked about our topic sentence and our concluding sentence and then our 3 supporting details? That's kind of a lot like main idea and details when you're reading a story, okay? It's kind of a lot of similarities there. So this one, the main idea says there were many fun things to do during the winter. And then there's details on each flower. Sledding down steep hills is fun. Sometimes we have snowball fights with my friends. And downhill skiing can be very challenging. So those were details about fun things to do during the winter. Okay, and then I found another one too that you might like. And that is about a pizza. So if you think about main idea like a pizza, kind of like when we think of author's purpose, we think about a pie. So if you think about main idea as a pizza, the whole pizza is the main idea. And the little toppings on top of the pizza are the details. So here it shows you the pepperoni is the detail number 1, and the mushrooms are detail number 2, and these little green peppers are the detail number 3. Okay, and sometimes we wonder, well, how do we find the main idea in something that we're reading? And so you can look at the title and the headings. Remember, that's what we do a lot in our Scholastic News magazines. You can look at the pictures. Those give you some clue as to what the main idea is about. You can read the first and last sentence, because that's like when you write your topic sentence and your concluding sentence. That's usually what your main idea is. And you can look for words that are used over and over. So that's another way to think of main idea, like a pizza. I like that idea. All right, so today we are going to do like yesterday, where we have some paragraphs, and I'm going to show you how to do this, and then in your reading packet, you're going to do this on your own. So here we go. It says, read the paragraph and then fill in the bubble that best completes each sentence. Have you ever played Monopoly? This famous game was invented more than 70 years ago. Times were very hard then. Many people were out of work. Charles B. Darrow had lost his job too. He began designing games to earn money. One game was based on getting rich. For many people, the game was a dream of better times. It became one of the world's most famous games. Okay, and there's the picture of Monopoly, cute little cartoon picture. So, number 1 at the bottom of the page says, what is the main idea? The main idea of the paragraph is blank. So remember, when you have questions like this, you have to read all the choices before you decide. So letter A says how and why Monopoly began. That could be. Let's look at the next one. The reason Darrow lost his job. How to play the game of Monopoly. So which one do you think is the text mostly about? And hopefully you said letter A, because the whole thing was about how and why Monopoly began. Okay, it doesn't really tell you why this person lost his job, and it doesn't explain how to play the game. So letter A is the main idea. Number 2, a detail that tells more about the main idea is, now this is the detail, supports the main idea. What people liked about Monopoly, how many people could play the game, how much Monopoly costs. Okay, now does it tell you up above in the paragraph how many people can play the game at once? Nope. Does it tell you how much it costs? Nope. So the best choice is letter A. What people liked about the game. And they told you right up here. For people, the game was a dream of better times. That's what they liked about it. Okay. Number 3, the best title for this paragraph would be Meet Charles Darrow, The Monopoly Story, or Popular Board Games. And hopefully you all knew that letter B would be the right answer because it's all about how Monopoly began. Okay, so that's main idea and details. I'm going to do one more example, and then you are going to do that by yourself on your packet. So this one's about goats. Goats help prevent fires in California. In parts of the state, the fall season is very dry. Hot winds blow over the land. The smallest spark can start a fire. The fires spread easily through grasses and bushes, so people use goats to eat the plants as a form of fire control. The goats eat anything, even plants with thorns. Many people rent the goats until the rains come and the danger is over. Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? Number 1 says, the main idea of the paragraph is, now think, what is the text mostly about? Goats are not very fussy eaters, goats prevent fires by clearing land, or California's dangerous dry season. Okay, the whole thing was about goats and how they help prevent fires, right? So letter B should have been what you thought. All right, now we're going to do a detail that tells more about the main idea. The goats are rented for the dry season. Cows do not work well for this job. Goats also eat plants people want to keep. Okay, now we know right away it's not B because the article didn't say anything about cows, did it? And it didn't also say anything about how they eat plants that people want to keep. But this sentence was right in the article. The goats are rented for the dry season. Okay, so if you go back up here, it even says, many people rent the goats. Okay, so that's how you knew letter A was the answer. Number 3, the best title for this paragraph would be California Fire Safety, Goats as Firefighters, The Problems of Fall. And hopefully you would say letter B, because that's what it was all about, how the goats help prevent fires in California. All right, so your job today is in your reading packet. Hopefully you have that with you, and if you don't, you need to pause the video and go get it. But your job is to do page 5 and 6 today. So you're going to do exactly what we just did together, but you're going to do it in your reading packet by yourself. So the first one's about Mark Brown. Mark Brown writes books about an aardvark. All of you know who Mark Brown is, don't you? Look at the picture right here. Do you recognize that? It's not in color, but I bet you've seen Mrs. Lunning has some Arthur books in her book tubs. So let's start again. Read it with me this time. Mark Brown writes books about an aardvark named Arthur. Many of Brown's characters are based on people in his life. For example, Buster is based on a childhood friend. So is the character Sue Ellen. 2 other characters, D.W. and Francine, are like his sisters in many ways. Another book character is Grandma Thora. She is named for Mark Brown's real grandmother. Okay, so you're going to do the bottom, and you're going to answer these questions. The first one's about the main idea. The next one is a detail. And the third one is the best title, just like we just did on our 2 examples. So go ahead and do that. And then page 6. This one's about this little guy. And it says, do you know what a palindrome is? Ooh, that's a real word. It is a word, phrase, or sentence that reads forward or backward the same way. For example, the word M-O-M is a palindrome. Whichever way you read it, it is the same. Okay, so if you did M-O-M and M-O-M, forward and backward, that's a palindrome. Other palindrome words are noon, did, level, and bob. A famous palindrome sentence is, Madam, I'm Adam. And if you go backwards, there's Madam, I'm Adam. Cool, huh? Can you think of some other palindromes? Okay, so here you go at the bottom. The main idea for number 1. Number 2, what's a detail? And number 3, the best title for this paragraph. Okay, so good luck. I also put a seesaw activity on Seesaw that you need to take a picture of both of these pages and upload them so that I can see that you got your work all correct. All right, so have fun with that. So for math today, if you need to stop the video and go get your math packet, we're going to do math. We're going to correct yesterday's, and we're going to talk about today's assignment. So yesterday you had to do guided practice. We talked about an analog clock and a digital clock, and your job was to tell time to the hour. So that probably wasn't too hard for many of you because I know you learned about that in first grade. So number 1, you should have had 9 o'clock on the digital clock and 9 o'clock down here. You needed to fill in both places. Hopefully you did. And 11 o'clock and 6 o'clock. All right, so those were your answers to your math. Today, your matrix tells you that you need to complete page 595 and 596, numbers 4 through 12. Okay, so right here, 4 through 12 on page 595 and 596 in your math packet. And don't forget to do the right math at the bottom of the page. Okay, so before we start that, I'm just going to show you a little bit on our clock. Now, this is my little clock here. Okay, now, if we were really in school, we'd be using my big clock, and you would all have a little clock like this in your hand. And I would be asking you to show me examples of time to the hour, okay? So remember, boys and girls, yesterday we talked about the hour hand was the short red hand. That's the hour hand, and it points to these red numbers. And this blue hand is the long hand. It's called the minute hand, and it points to the blue numbers out on the outside. Those are the minutes. Remember, each of these dots is a minute. So 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute. And then you keep going. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So rather than counting each little minute and each little dot, there's a different way that you can tell time that goes much quicker. And that's counting by 5s. So let's all practice counting by 5s for just a second. Count with me. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And that's how many minutes there are in 1 hour. And so rather than counting each one of these dots, when we have the minute hand on these red numbers, it coincides with this blue number right on top of it, right next to it, or right underneath it. And that's how you count by 5s. Okay, so we're going to get to that in a little bit. Today we're still working on the hour, but I'm going to have you count by 5s with me again, and it's going to show you how when you count by 5s, this minute hand is crossing over that red number. So here's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And that's why you need to know how to count by 5s when you tell time, because soon we'll be telling time to the 5 minute. And that means that this blue hand will be touching these blue numbers right next to the red numbers. And that's how we count to the 5 minute. Okay? And we'll talk about that in a couple days, right? So for today, you're telling time to the hour. So remember, 1 hour means the blue hand goes around all the way from the 12 back up to the 12, and then this will move. And remember, my big clock moves automatically. These little clocks don't do that. You have to do it by yourself. But here it goes around, and usually by this time it's moved a little like this. And then as it gets closer to the 12, it gets closer to the next hour, and voila, it's the next hour. It's kind of hard to show you on these little clocks, but hopefully you know how to tell time to the hour. So hopefully today your assignment will be pretty easy. So you have, like I said, page 595 and 596. So your job is to tell me what time is shown on the analog clock. So look right here. Look at your minute hand. Remember, the minute hand is the long hand, and every time it's on a 12, we say o'clock. Okay? So you need to write the time in the digital clock and down here as well. So 4 through 6. Then at the bottom, you actually have to draw the hands on the clock. And Mrs. Lunning's pretty picky about how you draw hands on the clock. So remember, if it's o'clock, this is going to touch the 12, and it actually has to touch that 12. But the 5 shouldn't touch the 5 because the hour hand is the short hand. So I'm actually going to show you on this one kind of lightly. Okay, so remember, the minute hand has to go through the number and touch way up there. That's the long hand. And the hour hand just points towards it but can't touch it because that's the short hand. Okay, so go ahead and write it in the digital clock and draw the hands on the clock. And o'clock is when the long hand is on the 12. Right, and on the back, Colin gets home at 3 o'clock. Evan gets home 1 hour later. What time does Evan get home? Okay, so you can do this a couple ways. You can know that 3 plus 1 equals blank. You know that. Or you can know that if the clock goes around 1 hour, what happens to that hour? It goes to the next one, right? So if it was already at 3 o'clock here, and it goes around all the way around, what happens to this hour? It moves to the next one, right? Okay, so draw the time on the clock. And then number 11, basketball practice starts at 4 o'clock. Mark eats a snack 2 hours before practice. What time does Mark eat his snack? So if it starts at 4, and you're going to do 2 hours before 4 o'clock, okay, so think it here, it's at 4, then go back around the wrong way and do that. So you can think of it 2 different ways, can't you? You can do 4 minus 2, or you can think in your head what a clock would look like if it went back around 2 hours. So put the time in the digital clock. And your brain builder, it is 4 hours before 12 o'clock. What time is it if it is exactly on the hour? Show the time on the clock. So here's another thing that you're going to do before. So 12 o'clock. So think of 12 minus 4 because you're doing before 12. Okay, 12 minus 4, what would that be? Or you can think in your head, go back around 4 times. What would that look like? You're right, math. What time is it when the hour hand is on 5 and the minute hand is on 12? How do you know? So you need to write what time it is, and then tell me how you know that that's the correct time. You should use words like the minute hand and the hour hand. All right, good luck. I know you'll do a great job. Have a wonderful day, second grade, and I will be back with you again tomorrow. Bye.